As Namibia reflects on the passing of Dr. Hage Geingob, President of the Republic of Namibia, exactly 1 year ago on the 4th of February 2024, one cannot help but think of the incredible friendship he shared with President Namibia and Speaker Professor Peter Katjavivi. Now their friendship as well as their professional journeys not only shaped their personal lives but also left an indelible mark on Namibia's political, social as well as educational landscape. Dr. Hage Geingob, Professor Peter Katjavivi and Dr. Namibia were united by their shared commitment to Namibia's liberation. Now during the struggle for independence, these three visionaries worked tirelessly in various capacities to ensure Namibia's freedom. Dr. Geingob, as the first Prime Minister and later President, was instrumental in building the nation's governance structure. Prof. Katjavivi, a scholar and a politician, played a key role in documenting Namibia's history and founding its education systems. Meanwhile, Dr. Mbumba contributed significantly as an educator and administrator and later a senior government official. The loss of Dr. Hage Geingob marked the end of an era, yet his memory lives on through the lives he touched and the work he accomplished alongside Dr. Mbumba and Professor Katjavivi. Now, as Namibia remembers Dr. Geingob 1 year after his passing, we now sit down with Prof. Katjavivi to reflect on the past year. Greetings, Prof, and thank you so much for making time to join us for this conversation of reflection.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to believe that a whole year has passed, Prof.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about how this past year, these past 12 months have been for you, both personally but also professionally.
William is greatly missed by his dear wife, children, friends, and the nation as a whole. But as we mark the first anniversary of the passing of our dear friend, Dr. Hage Geingob, we remember him fondly, and this is an occasion for us as a people to celebrate his life and to pay tribute to his contribution to our nation's development. And still, we miss him greatly because he was an important figure in our country. I remember once hearing from his dear wife, Monica, telling a story about whatever you do, if Hage is somewhere in a big room and he's in another corner, you will be able to hear his voice because the voice will reveal that he's somewhere within the vicinity. So he's been a pillar, he's been a very strong character. He's a man who provided the kind of leadership that our country needed. Of course, together with the founding father, with the second president, and the rest of the team that are constantly there to drive nation building.
Thank you for sharing that, Prof. What is it that you remember most fondly?
First of all, I think he was a partner. He was a partner during the course of the liberation struggle because he was assigned by the founding president to serve as our spokesperson representing SWAPO, particularly in the Americas, and concentrating on the work around the United Nations, while I was at the same time assigned to represent SWAPO in London, responsible for Western Europe. So we worked together closely, sharing whatever challenges, ideas, etc., etc. So that is what he has been to me. And there's so many things that I can recount for you. But I think, indeed, one thing that is very clear, that Hage Geingob life is closely associated with Namibia's struggle for freedom and independence. And, of course, nation building. After independence, when we came back, we embarked upon the course of national development and reconstruction. And as our first Prime Minister played a very important role in that. It was in that context that while he was serving as our Prime Minister, I was reassigned out of Parliament to set up the National University. That was my particular assignment given to me by the founding president. And we worked together during that time. It was a job that needed, first of all, consolidate the role of the university to serve as an important instrument for capacity building, and to make sure that we have men and women who with the necessary skill who will embark upon the development of the country. And I remember we mobilized extra budget resources for that. That time it was very early during that time. We didn't have all the resources that was needed in order to do some of those things. And I remember negotiating with the World Bank. They gave us a fund. That fund was basically used to target people within government service, from the deputy minister to senior government officials who needed to upgrade their skills and competence. We had a special extramural activities organized in the afternoon, late in the afternoon from 5 p.m. And Hage Geingob make sure that those people were released to be able to access the kind of training that they needed. So he has been a partner in that sense. To some of us, friends and colleagues, he had been a long-standing partner. Partner during the course of the liberation struggle, partner during the course of nation building. So in that sense, I would say he was always to me a long-standing friend with whom we were able to face a number of challenges, shared moments of joy as well as happiness.
Thank you for sharing that, Prof. Now, how has it been in not being able to reach out to that long-standing friend, not being able to touch base with him, not being able to gauge his take on certain matters over the past 12 months?
I would like to characterize the friendship we had. My dear brother Nangolo Bumba and myself and Hage had a kind of a unique kind of friendship. We share a great deal in common. We're born the same year. That is what made us to bond in a very extraordinary way. And again, but also share the vision of our country in terms of where we are and where we would like to take Namibia to in years to come. And we're discussing a great deal about our retirement when we do that, and the need to do that, to exit together. With the passing of my dear wife, I had a long discussion with Hage, saying maybe the time has come for me to concentrate on the family affairs and grandchildren that are now growing. And we talk a lot about that. And he said, well, you know, the end in terms of our time in office, is getting closer and closer. Therefore, let's do it, exit together at the same time, so that we continue to interact as much as possible in our retirement. Talking about moving to the coast, well, of course, that's where you have an extraordinary climate, when you need retirement people to retire in peace and enjoy the comfort of what Swakopmund can offer. And so his passing was a heavy blow, not only to the family, but to the rest of us, old friends. We thought we will still be doing a great deal together, even in retirement. And God willing, that was the will of God. It did not happen. But the rest of us, Nangolo Bumba and myself, obviously will continue, and will always, his space in our grouping will always be there. And that is the space that we'll share with his dear wife and the family from time to time, because he is not here physically, but he'll continue with us in spirit.
I hear you about the big blow that we all suffered, Prof, but you've had to deal with two big blows. How was it for you, still mourning the loss of your dear wife? And then came the second very heavy blow as well.
He and Monica, Nagolo Mbumba, Siski Mbumba, and our friends, the network, were extremely important to me. They were extraordinary pillars for me and my family, and particularly my children. Their very presence helped me to cope. You don't cope completely 100%, but it's important when you have people who are so special to you, who will be able to appreciate the moment when you are down and when your spirit is down, and comfort you in a very extraordinary way. They came home, they've been constant visitors to my home. They also, my children also registered that the fact that Uncle Hage and Uncle Nagolo were constant companion, helping me to cope. And likewise, obviously, we have to do the same thing, particularly Monica and the rest of the children. It's never enough. The absence of a father figure, someone like I, will be greatly missed. There's no question about it. But we would try at the human level to cope as much as possible.
Prof, now I'd like to take you back in terms of your specific roles, and those remain unfolding roles. You know, it's never destination based. But as far as your role was concerned to lay the foundation for our tertiary education structure in this country, but also as far as documenting history is concerned, what role did the leadership of Dr. Geingob play in helping you cement those very critically important foundations?
I think all of us who served at that time during the liberation struggle were thrown to the deep end. None of us were trained for the role we played. We learned as we went along, basically to respond constantly to particular challenges of the time. And we had a network of colleagues, members of various liberation movements of the time, from Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Angola. That also created kind of a network within which we were able to basically to learn from each other and to grow. Learning the tactics, the experience that other people have been applying help us to basically improve on the kind of ability, the skill that are needed to manage. The most important thing was to build a network of solidarity and support for the freedom and independence of our country. And there was a tremendous sense of goodwill for that around the globe. Many women who volunteered to assist us, that really inspired some of us. If are able to rely on that kind of level of support, that we were able to build, who am I not to intensify my commitment to make sure that the job is done. We had a very interesting conversation with Hage during that time, learning how to get the media's attention, to learn how to tell that story that reflects the needs and aspirations of our people back home. The founding father was a critical person in guiding us in that regard. Absolute trust made you to feel you work 100% for the cause. And given that commitment and trust and responsibility, made you also to feel, I have the comfort of being in exile, having access to education, learning to improve myself, but at the same time, I have to dedicate my life, my time to serving the cause of the liberation struggle. By being a witness, by being an ambassador who will spare no time but to reach out. That meant that we also have to start documenting the events as they are unfolding, to make sure that the message is loud and clear, to become a reliable source of information for the freedom and independence of our country. That is something that I think I did very closely, much more closely with Hage Geingob. And I remember we were comparing notes, and he would say to me, you know, we are now flying from here, from A to B. When we get there, we had to prepare in case the media people are there and they wanted to ask a question. We had to anticipate. In other words, you had few lines already prepared in your pocket that you can draw from. So some of those things tell me about how we have traversed the journey of freedom and independence together, and constantly touching base, exchanging ideas, etc. And that led to the whole idea of documenting. We started to do a newsletter for the London office, for the New York office, for the Stockholm office, from Cairo. All these offices had a particular newsletter that served as the voice of the people in Namibia. Through you'll be able to pick up and read and get to know about what is the latest development as far as the struggle for freedom of Namibia goes. And we had a publication for the London office called the Namibia News, funded by a foundation run by an old lady who was impressed, was motivated to do something, stepped out and contributed to financing the cost for producing that. So they say in my language, "Shietfombade," anything that you need, sometimes it is brought to you by you stepping out.
Absolutely. It reminds us, Prof, of some of the principles and values of the late Dr. Geingob. And a matter that was very close to his heart was, you know, transparency plus accountability equal trust.
Absolutely.
To what extent did he live out those values that he also preached?
Indeed, he was a champion of transformation. He wanted to see a strong and independent Namibia, upholding the rule of law, systems, structures, processes. These are things that he valued strongly. These are things that as we went, the longer the struggle went, the more we were learning about tomorrow. What do we do tomorrow? What kind of society do we see? Obviously, we want to see a strong, independent Namibia. Some of the challenges that we experience around the globe taught us that we had to prepare for the kind of society that is sustainable, strong, to have a character. So this is a sort of thing that made us, and particularly Hage was talking about wanting to see a strong Namibia standing tall and pride. In this way, it will guarantee peace and stability and propel independent Namibia to function on the basis of its three organs of state in a manner that is exemplary.
And he was on record, Prof, that peace is no cheap commodity. When he passed away on Sunday, 4 February 2024, his time in this realm was up. But we also knew that we individually and collectively had a very serious responsibility to wrap up the matters that he had laid the foundation for.
Yeah.
From your perspective, were we able to live up to that responsibility over the past 12 months?
I think the biggest tribute that we as a country, as a nation, have paid to Hage was to hold the country together after his passing, truly in line with the kind of vision he held for this country. And I remember before his passing, the rest of us representing the three organs of state were summoned to the hospital. And for the first time, to realize that he was quite ill. And I remember walking in that hospital seeing all of us there symbolizing our nation, what is founded, the framework that governs this country, and being briefed. And after his passing, the way how we manage the affairs, and this is a particular thanks and appreciation that we extend to our dear brother, His Excellency Dr. Nangolo Mbumba, who have held as a head of state now, managing the affairs of state in a manner that in line with the Constitution, in line with everything that I have perceived. And this is the biggest tribute. And it is not only us who have to acknowledge this. Other people outside this country have acknowledged that, to say this was remarkable. And it is exactly what he was actually preaching, talking about the need to have strong systems, structures and process.
And institutions.
An institution that can stand and sustain us as a country. So we have made a very good beginning, and it is for us and the future generation to continue to deepen that.
And the work is far from done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Prof, speaking of which, education was very close to Dr. Geingob's heart. Talk to us about, and he's a former educator himself, talk to us about how he lived out that aspiration.
Everything starts from you. They say charity begins at home. Hage was actually educationalist at heart, with ups commitment from way back from high school, where he went through teacher training. We were together at Augustinium at that high school, and I remember throughout he combined his commitment to the cause of striving to represent the party in various institutions during that time, while at the same time he was studying. I remember the founding president sent us to the International Court of Justice to oversee our case in the 1970s. And I remember him in our respective hotel rooms. We agreed on the time when we go for dinner, and I remember knocking at the door, and when I got in there, he was busy finishing an essay. This is academic assignment. He's on a mission, on the party mission, but at the same time carrying on his education in terms of preparing for a few days later when he had to submit that essay. This is a demonstration of someone who is absolutely committed. He was a champion of education. When he took over the leadership at the United Nations Institute for Namibia, that became a very important assignment. This is an institution that was set up for the purpose of training future government officials, the bureaucrats who are going to run the affairs of an independent Namibia came from that institution. Today, you find those men and women all over the country, within our government structures, within the private sector, judiciary, everywhere. And that is what Hage was all about. And even as head of state of this country, education was always an important aspect that has to be addressed. He was a partner for nation building. He never gave up. And he was also a very particular person. He was like a headmaster, constantly demanding an improvement. One does not stop learning. Learning is part of life. You continue to improve yourself as time goes on.
Prof, you're mentioning nation building. Now, at the core of that journey of Dr. Geingob's was, of course, his commitment to non-tribalism. Could you briefly talk to us about that?
Nation building, it was very important for Hage. I think it was our own understanding and appreciation what we as young people we joined SWAPO, we joined SWAPO with the view to use the party as an instrument for transforming, to become a body that strives for the freedom and independence of Namibia, but again, Namibia that is inclusive of all the citizens of our country. And he continued to basically strengthen that whole idea, that particular platform at the government level to talk about the Harambee concept, using that particular Harambee concept to instill one Namibia, one nation. Mm. And absolutely convinced Namibia can be stronger if it is the home for all the citizens of this country living together in peace. You cannot build a stable society that is fragmented into different groupings of some kind.
Have we sufficiently internalized that? Do we as Namibians have enough appreciation for that reality?
This is a work in progress. Good things don't come easily, but there must be advocates, champions, who continuously remind the nation about this commitment. Our very survival depends on our ability to transform. Mm. We don't pretend we do not come from various communities that constitute Namibia, but the idea of the fact that we need to pull together for the good of our country is paramount.
And Hage Geingob was such a champion.
He was a champion of that particular idea, and it's now left for us to pick it up and continuously remind ourselves. But this is who we are. This should be the kind of thing that define who we are as Namibians, living in peace in a stable country. Because no one from outside Namibia would like to come to be associated with a country that is totally tearing itself into pieces. Mm. That is not where we want to go. We want to go towards building a strong, united Namibia.
Prof, I'd like us to briefly have regard to his leadership trajectory, particularly from the 21st of March 1990 to Sunday 4 February 2024. How would you say his leadership style, approach and journey deepened over those years?
I think as young people of my generation, we were very much inspired by the leadership of those African leaders who spoke about the need for pan-African unity, pulling together, rebuilding the African continent. And talk about Kwame Nkrumah, we talk about Kenneth Kaunda, we talk about Nyerere, but we also go back to the period during the Pan-African leaders who were striving for unity. Look at our people in diaspora, in the Caribbean, in the United States of America, in Latin America, all over the world. Talk about the unity to bring us together. The whole idea of the non-aligned movement started from regrouping the third force, if you like. The non-aligned because we don't want to be associated with the East or West, the Cold War, that basically sometimes used as an excuse to keep us in slavery. And the liberation struggle, as we were striving for freedom and independence of our country, we were also witness to some of the events where some of the Western countries with vested economic interests in Southern Africa were basically on the side of the white minority regimes and things like that. So we're basically, these are some of the struggle of the past that also affected us directly. So rebuilding Africa meant that we will be looking at things that we pick up, that will become the basis for strengthening the unity of the African continent. What the founding fathers of the Organization of African Unity stood for, looking at some of the things that they have attempted to do, pick up the pieces from there and improve on the framework that will help us to strengthen the unity of the African continent. Hage was very fond of that. He spoke highly about the need, the third wave from the Nkrumah period to the leaders who came after that, and the third wave that represented his generation of leaders who have taken over, the need to find each other, to regroup together, to look at things that they can pick up and strengthen in it to add value to our aspirations. The Africa we want. These are the things that are important and extremely urgent as we're trying to strive for who we are and what we want and what is the best, what can serve the best interests of Africa.
Prof, many have the conviction that part of the Africa that we want, part of the Namibia that we want, is of course the economic emancipation of our people. And we have made some strides, and President Geingob was also dedicated to those efforts. But we certainly also have a long way to go. What do you make of that?
Good, as I was saying, good things don't come easily.
And they take time.
And take time. But there must be champions who persist, who see value in the fact that Africa is a rich continent with the mineral resources. We are talking about oil and gas. In 1990, we never spoke about any of these things because we didn't know. But there were people who were busy exploring to find out. Now we are talking about basically our natural resources must be locally processed in order to add value to the development of our country. These are the things that are now part of the agenda of today's Namibia. And the leadership of our country must have continue this particular framework. Work on it, make sure that it is achieved in good time. And it is not going to be easy, but a beginning must be made because this is something whose time has come.
I want us to take another slight step back. You've touched on Dr. Geingob's time in New York. You've spoken about his visits to you in London. You also spoke about his time in Zambia and the key role that he played there. So in terms of amplifying the voice of what was to become Namibia, what role did he play?
I think it is really the question of constantly look at who we are, look at how we strengthen national institutions in all aspects. The question of accountability, the question of transparency, the question of building a strong national institutions. I think it is something that Hage Geingob was very keen on for a purpose. Whatever you do, it's important that you do it in a manner that you are able to evaluate and say, how far have I gone? What are the things that are still outstanding? Evaluate yourself in order to be able to strengthen the very platform that you have actually created. These are the sort of things that really speak loud about Hage's vision for Namibia. A strong, independent country that is predictable and very much alive in its own commitment to uphold the Constitution and making sure that we are able to strive for things that improve the quality of life. I remember, I think, few months ago, over a year ago, talking to some of our elders, the pensioners. I think he was particularly interested in wanting to improve the kind of benefit that they are entitled to to revisit that issue of making sure that to improve the quality of life for our people. And I think it's like looking within our own system to say, has the time come maybe to increase the benefit? Because we are looking at people who obviously need to live a decent life so that they can actually lead a decent retirement period. The quality of life, I think, was basically looking at that. So I would say he was an all-rounder, a champion of good governance, and at the same time also a good listener, having an eye on what he sees and hears on the ground must be responded to so that people feel confident. We have a government that is listening and observing, a government that is actually particularly keen to see that things are done in such a way that people have confidence in those who govern them.
You're speaking about his vision for Namibia. I remember on Saturday, 24 February 2024, former First Lady Monica Geingob informing Namibia and the world that the Namibia she witnessed during the 3 weeks of mourning following his death was the Namibia that Hage Geingob was yearning for. There was no iota of doubt about the manner in which his death united Namibians. Yeah. What do you believe it was about Hage Geingob that resonated so deeply, so intimately with all Namibians across all walks of life?
I think he was deeply concerned to translate the vision that we pronounce ourselves about. Words such as one Namibia, one nation should never remain as a political statement, but it must have a content that is actually we are able to translate into practical application. And also, having lived through the period under colonial domination, the apartheid system of the time, I think he was striving a society where our people, particularly young people, are not judged on the color of their skin, but their character. How do we transform that? How do we reshape that to become something like, this is our dream? As young people, as we were growing up, we were dreaming of basically saying to those who wish us ill, to say, no, our people are capable of prevailing and producing the kind of society that knows no color, but accept anyone simply by judging you on your character, who you are. It's almost like living up to the struggle for equality in the United States of America, where Dr. Martin Luther King spoke about, I would like one day to see my children being judged on their character, but not on the color of their skin. These are expressions that actually we want to live by that. We want to see them deepen in our society, because that is what will make the kind of Namibia that we can look back and say, I was part of that, and I'm extremely proud that it has come about. It is doable.
Prof, as we're slowly starting to wrap up our conversation, how will we ensure that future generations are informed, are well aware of the massive contribution that Hage Geingob made to what they call home?
We are in the process, maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but Monica Kenkos, the children and the family, and the number of friends, including myself, are in the process of looking into the possibility of setting up Dr. Hage Geingob Presidential Center, a center that will house the life of this great son of Namibia, where people hopefully one day can go and read and discover even more about who was this Hage Geingob people speak about. Some of those children are yet to be born, but we need to think ahead into the future. And I hope as they come around, they will be struck by his commitment to education, to nation building, to one Namibia, one nation. These are all not just an expression, but it is for a purpose. Holding this country together is what people of my generation and people before my generation and those younger people of today's independent Namibia, I think we did not fight for freedom and independence then to disperse into small groupings. The Constitution is a living document that was put together by men and women who decided we will be, our destiny lies in our ability to stick together. We might have political differences. It's normal in any society, but there must be certain goals that are much bigger than political differences that is holding the country together for today and for years to come. That preserving Namibia is something that is the heritage must be inherited by many, many young people who are still to come, so that they can look back and say, our forefathers have done this for us. Our elders resisted imperialism and colonialism. They fought in different corners of this country, but they knew about each other, that there were a particular grouping in the north, a particular grouping in the south, a particular groupings in the central. When the time came to resist, they called upon each other to say, let us rise together to resist the invaders. Now the country is independent today. We must hold it together so that it can serve the much wider interest of Namibia of years to come. But apart from that, we are not an island. We are part of this great African continent. Our vision is linked to the unity of Africa and the global village.
Thank you, Prof. Do you perhaps have a final message for Namibians 12 months after the demise of Dr. Hage Geingob?
Well, all I can say that we tribute to this great sons of Namibia, a statesman of high repute who contributed so much and whose life is linked to Namibia today and for years to come.
Okuhe passionene, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your great contribution to the land of the brave as well, Prof. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
There you have it, Professor Peter Katjavivi, the Speaker of the National Assembly, walking us through the life and legacy of the late Dr. Hage Geingob, who passed away on Sunday, 4 February 2024, and commemorating 12 months following the death of Dr. Geingob.